Hilton contract negotiations. So I'm Margaret Butler, and I'm the director of Portland Jobs with Justice, and I get the great privilege of staffing our Workers' Rights Board project, which has been really an amazing thing over the last 10 years and has made a significant difference in lots of workers' struggles. For those of you who might not know what JWJ is, we're a coalition of unions and community groups working on a campaign for workers' rights, defined pretty broadly, and we ask people to sign this pledge card that says, I'll be there 5 times in a year to support other people. And if enough of us come out, then we can start to win. So if you haven't signed the pledge card, you have a chance to do that tonight. The Workers' Rights Board project involves community leaders in supporting these struggles. And we're very lucky to have a pool of about 75 people who have engaged and have been willing to use their moral authority and a little bit of their time to help support workers. We tell people that the Workers' Rights Board is independent of the labor movement, but it is not neutral. It is a group of people who share a set of values, and they include valuing the right to collective bargaining, valuing good wages and benefits for everyone, valuing freedom from discrimination, valuing the right to health care. So these people are not neutral, but they are an independent group of people from the community who will help shine a light on situations where workers' rights are threatened here. I want to say one thing about the Hilton campaign. JWJ's been supporting this group of workers for the last year and supported it back when they first organized as well. And there's been a lot of things that have happened during the course of the campaign, and some of those stories you'll hear tonight. But we've been really proud to engage with these workers through the Portland Rising project and marching across the bridge to Vancouver. Some of you were there. It's really great. I want to recognize the other Workers' Rights Board members who are here. So if you'll stand up, we have 4 or 5 of you in the audience. Father Jack, Father Bob, Barbara Bird, Barbara Dudley. Am I missing anybody? Just wave and And in a point of personal privilege, I also want to recognize Vancouver resident Harold Brookins, who helped found Portland Jobs with Justice 20 years ago. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce our panel chair for the evening. Dr. Lori Mercier teaches labor history at Washington State University in Vancouver, and she's written extensively on community unionism, on mining, on all kinds of things. It also focuses on sex and ethnicity in the labor movement. She's also part of the Social and Environmental Justice Certificate program at Washington State, which JWJ has been lucky enough to have several students intern from that program. So she will introduce the rest of the panel and lead us through the evening.
Thanks, Margaret. Good evening, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've been fortunate to have been learning about the Vancouver Hilton workers' struggles over the past months and working with them. And we all know it takes a lot of courage to stand up for one's rights in these difficult times. We're living in a period of unprecedented inequality and concentration of wealth. We know that Clark County's poverty rate is climbing faster than in Washington State and in the nation as a whole. And we see the size of the middle class shrink. And we need to remember that it was labor unions that built the middle class in the decades following the 1930s by insisting on living wage jobs. The survival of American democracy and the health of our communities depend on ensuring minimum wage standards in health care. Tonight we're going to hear some of the personal stories of the workers, stories that we seldom hear. This hotel is run by the Hilton, but the property is owned by the City of Vancouver and managed by the Downtown Redevelopment Association. We'll hear expert testimony about the relationships of these entities and the financial arrangements. We'll hear about the initial organizing and the understanding with the community about the hotel's role in Vancouver. And we'll hear stories about the management's anti-union activity. We'll hear stories about why workers need improvements in their standards. This is the hidden history of the Vancouver Hilton and its workers that we all need to understand. We invited the Downtown Redevelopment Association to come and present their perspective, but they politely declined to participate. Now let me introduce my fellow panel members. At the end here on the left, all the way from SeaTac, welcome Mia Gregerson, who's been a council member for the city of SeaTac and is now serving as deputy mayor. Next to her is Andrea Cano, who has served as the Western Regional Organizer of the Justice and Peace Action Network and Director of the Oregon Farm Worker Ministry and a member of the Oregon Commission on Hispanic Affairs. Next to me, Dr. Mary King is a professor of economics at Portland State University, specializing in labor economics and gender and ethnicity in the economy, Mexican migration, and Mexican women in Oregon. To my right, Reverend Dr. Brooks Berndt, who has been a pastor at First Congregational United Church of Christ in Vancouver for 4 years and successfully organized living wage campaigns at 9 seminaries in California. Dr. Pavitra Narayanan has been a professor, the Buchanan Scholar in English and Writing at Washington State University in Vancouver, and she researches and writes about economic and social policy, civil liberties, globalization, and just a few weeks ago had a new book appear, What Are You Reading? The World Market and Indian Literary Production. And finally, Steve Novick has spent 25 years as a public servant and activist. He is currently a candidate for the Portland City Council and winner of the Willamette Week's Activist of the Year Award twice. So we want to start with testimony from Nisha Hegde, who is a financial expert with Unite Here Local 9 to guide us through the finances of the hotel.
Good evening. My name is Nisha Hegde, and I'm a researcher with Unite Here, the international union, the union that represents these workers at the Vancouver Hilton. As a part of our work, my colleagues and I have looked at the financing and performance of the Vancouver Hilton Hotel, and my goal in speaking with you today is to A, give you a basic picture of the financial structure of the hotel deal, and B, talk a little bit about the performance of the hotel and what it means for giving the workers and what they're asking for. And there are some handouts I can pass around. So here's a basic picture of the deal. There are 3 important players, and I'll outline who they are in order of importance. At the center of the deal is the hotel's owner, the Downtown Redevelopment Authority, or the DRA. The DRA is a nonprofit public corporation that the City of Vancouver set up about a decade ago to build and own the hotel and convention center. The DRA is governed by a 7-member board of directors, mainly Vancouver residents appointed by the City Council, and these guys are the key decision makers in the situation. The next important player is Hilton, and about 8 years ago, the DRA hired Hilton to run the hotel for them. Hilton manages the hotel's day-to-day operations, so they book rooms, hire and supervise workers, etc., for a fee under a long-term management agreement. Hilton is a company that our members deal with on a day-to-day basis, and the company in which we're trying to negotiate a new contract. Now, keep in mind that Hilton is a hired gun working for the DRA, and is ultimately the DRA as owner that pays the bills and really calls the shots on big decisions such as the hotel's annual budget. The other important players in this deal are the bondholders or the lenders. These are the big mutual fund companies and institutional investors which purchased about $70 million of tax-free bonds issued by the DRA in 2004 to finance the hotel's construction. These players include big financial players, including those you might recognize, like Goldman Sachs. So the next thing I want to talk to you about, if you flip the page, there's a... Got it? Okay. So that's the funding. So I want to talk to you about how the hotel is doing, and this is important because you might hear from Hilton or from the DRA that the hotel isn't performing very well, or there's not enough money available to pay the workers more or to even improve their health care. And while it's true that times are tough for a lot of people, it's also true that the situation at the Hilton is not as stark as you might be led to believe. So I want to really put this hotel in context and the convention center property in a broader context. This isn't just a freestanding hotel on a highway somewhere whose success is only measured by how much money it returns to some investors. It's a hotel and convention center with a broader economic and policy goal to bring visitors to Vancouver and treat to create economic activity and jobs in Vancouver. As the DRA itself reports, quote, using the Convention Visitors Bureau monetary assumption that the average hotel guest has an expenditure in the local economy of $311 per day, the Hilton hotel occupancy had an estimated economic impact in this community of approximately $16 million during 2010. In other words, even though the hotel and convention center isn't generating huge profits as an isolated operating business, it's providing a benefit to the city of Vancouver, and it should do right by those who work at the hotel, approximately 90% of whom actually live in Vancouver or Clark County, by making their jobs truly quality jobs, not just low-wage, poor benefit jobs. Second, leaving aside those broader economic benefits and goals, you should know that this hotel is taking in enough money from customers in their room and food bill charges and their hotel tax and sales tax payments to be able to afford to pay the workers more and provide them with better health benefits and still have money left over to pay bondholders their annual interest payments over $3 million. And so that Hilton get paid its base hotel management fees of almost $500,000. So the picture of the money that's available is this. First, you have hotel revenues, the money paid for by rooms and food, etc. These revenues are projected by the asset manager, Warnick and Company, to be $11 million in 2012, up 7.2% from about $10.9 million in 2011, as the economy improves and business gradually comes back. Then you have an available $2 million from the city hotel taxes and from city and county sales taxes, money which was always intended to go towards paying for this hotel convention center project. In fact, according to the DRA fact sheet, the top priority use of lodging tax revenue is to support the hotel and convention center. After that, you have available additional city hotel tax reserves, up to $650,000 a year, which the city is required to use, if needed, to pay for interest and principal on the hotel and convention center bonds. Finally, if needed, there's a $4 million senior debt reserve fund, money that was set aside for use in case the funds described above were exhausted. And the hotel still, if the hotel still wasn't making enough money in the operations and tax revenues to pay its debt service. When you add up all that money, there's still enough money to pay off these players. In fact, even leaving aside the $4 million debt reserve fund, there's likely to be enough money described to give the workers and other players much of what they need based on current projections. Things are looking up for the hotel as evidenced by the 7.2 revenue increase projected in 2012. So what we're looking at here fundamentally is a budget decision being made by the DRA, a decision to pay other parties and to shortchange the main workers at the hotel. The DRA, with the guidance of Hilton and from the hotel's $100,000 a year asset manager, Warnick and Company, is making a choice to skimp on the workers in this publicly owned project, even when it's not really necessarily or even their only choice. So given the numbers, we would argue that the DRA board can and should make a different choice. They should step up, take leadership, and make the right choice in this situation, the right choice for the city, and for the long-term health of the hotel and for the workers.
Thank you. Now we'll
hear from Lorna Buck, a leader of the Hilton workers.
Good evening. My name is Lorna Buck, and I work at the Vancouver Hilton as a banquet captain. I oversee the banquet parties that happen at the hotel. I work with the clients and the servers who are part of the function to make sure the event goes well. I make sure the room is set, I present the bill to the client, and overall make sure the customer is happy. I want to thank the panel this evening for being here and any of the DRA or Hilton management. For the past 6 years, I have been standing up talking to someone, anyone that will listen to our union about the struggles of health care and wages at the Vancouver Hilton. Over the last 6 years, I have talked to city council members one-on-one. I helped get the new mayor, Tim Levitt, elected by taking time off my job to work with the union for that. I've gone to the DRA meetings, met one-on-one with Lloyd Tyler, the COO of the city and president of the DRA. I have met with Regional Hilton Representative Brad Hutton, who has an office in our hotel, and I have heard over the last 6 years from these people how they have no money and how complicated their finance structure is. I have gone to and organized rallies at the hotel, talked to community members, house visited my co-workers, and done anything I thought would help get our message out and explain what our struggles at the hotel have been. Our first contract was not great. It took us 2 years to organize and negotiate this contract. We had a card check agreement with the Hilton and City in 2006 and became union in 2007. And with the contract in 2008. During this time, management and the hotel put a lot of pressure on us. During our contract vote, for example, my manager at the time, Holly, even came into the room at the hotel to watch us vote. She interfered with our organizing to pool our tips. She would write me up, disappoint me, and eventually the union stepped in and helped me file an unfair labor practice against her. The hotel also froze our wages during our organizing, saying it was because of our union. Our first contract was not great, but it got us started. We were to reopen the contract in 2 years with improvement on wages and benefits. What a shock to me when we were told that the city had put a freeze on wage increases for all city workers. The firefighters, police, and city workers weren't getting a raise, and that meant us too. I really wanted to reach across the table and squeeze the neck of the lawyer making $100+ an hour working for the Hilton, telling us our $8.55 jobs were compared to people already making a decent living. I have watched my fellow workers lose their homes, lights, and not have enough food. My question to the DRA is, can you live on Washington's new minimum wage of $9.04 an hour and pay for medication, health insurance, rent, food, lights, water, garbage, and buy shoes for your feet? Is this how it's done in America? Managers on the second floor get to enjoy these privileges while the workers on the first floor of the hotel just work to improve the hotel's reputation? We are the ones who actually wash the dishes, cook and serve the food, and make the beds. We are expected to do this with a smile and in 8 hours while we're understaffed. The workers at the Hilton have had to struggle to stay union. We have won 2 decertification votes and it's clear that we want to be union. It is offensive because management and the city have made a situation where they benefit from our union brothers and sisters' business, but refuse to pay us union standards, leaving us to fight each other over the scraps. Finally, this year, we decided we had had enough, and we organized for a boycott against the hotel in November. Even though our management team was doing their best to make us feel scared, of losing our jobs with the boycott vote, our union brothers and sisters held strong and voted yes, only losing by 5 votes. And if we take economic action against the hotel after this Workers' Right Board hearing and our charges are heard at the National Labor Relations Board, that could have a real economic impact for the Hilton and the downtown businesses. We want to do this. All we want to do is sit down for a fair contract that makes sense for these economic times for us. Doing this means decent wages and improvement on our health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin White.
Hello. Glad to see everybody here. I'm really proud of everybody for showing up. This really shows just what we're made of. Appreciate it. Hello, my name is Robin White. I'm president of the Painters and Tapers Local 10 and executive board member of the Southwest Washington Central Labor Council. I have a long history in the Vancouver, Clark County area, and I'm proud to have been involved in many community events and projects throughout the years. I'm especially proud of my involvement with the Klein Line Kids Fishing Program, which was recently awarded the Clark County Spirit Award at this year's State of the County event, and is one of the largest events in Clark County. See me for volunteer and sponsorship opportunities. Wait a minute, how'd that get in there? Really? So, when as a community, we endeavor to create a more livable and vibrant community, we form partnerships between citizens. At times, we form partnerships between government and business. The Convention Center is one of those public-private partnerships. In the case of the Hilton Convention Center, we failed to realize the goals of true community benefit as it pertains to the just treatment of employees working at the Hilton, the enhancement of our local economy, and the working relationship between our government and its citizens. Organized labor was absolutely instrumental in the shepherding of this project through the red tape of Olympia and local governments and the public. During that process, promises were made regarding project labor agreements and good jobs for the employees of the finished project. Promises were broken, and while many made money for the very people it was intended to, Promises were broken, and while many made money, the very people it was intended to benefit originally were left with empty promises, substandard jobs, and citizens responsible for debts. There seems to be a different concept of reality at the Hilton, the DRA and the local government. The Hilton recently had a canned food drive for those less fortunate in our community, when in fact the very people they employ are often the recipients of services the community provides for those that are less fortunate in our society. I'm reasonably certain that this is representative of the disconnect between the Hilton and their employees. The Hilton and Downtown Redevelopment Authority justify large amounts of money spent to retain the brand standard. While I believe this to be important, I cannot understand how the quality of televisions is any less important than the standards of the workers that have garnered the highest awards for their quality of work in the Hilton Corporation and in the industry. I should think that it would be the single most important value to have the highest standard of service in the service industry, and for those providing that standard to be compensated fairly for that effort. Businesses, by their very nature, are begun with the realization that profitability develops over a period of time. To try to realize higher profit margins at the expense of the laborer is it's not just, nor do I believe it's good business. We, the community, are partners in this business. The Downtown Redevelopment Authority has been asked to sit down with the Hilton and representatives of the employees and sort out the issues at hand. The response has been that they are legally bound not to interfere. This is nonsense. The city owns the property and should sit down with the Hilton, who they hire and pay to provide management and direct them to settle a fair contract. Citizens of Vancouver have made it clear this is what we want the city to do. The Clark County Facilities District Board, the Downtown Redevelopment Authority, and the City Council all deny any power or responsibility in the matter, even though they created it. In short, spending nearly $80 million to create over 100 jobs that do not provide a living for those who work full-time and overtime, do not increase tax revenue, but further strain on social services, does not benefit our local economy. Fair wages for those jobs provides the biggest bang for our buck in the local economy. Making money for development corporations, multinational corporations, and the like is not of the same benefit and misses the mark in what we were led to believe was the intention of this partnership. As one of those partners, I'm ashamed and call upon the citizens of this community to band together in support of the workers at the Hilton and set an example for further public-private partnerships. I truly believe it's our duty as citizens to demand the city take responsibility for the actions at the hotel, including making sure those workers make a decent wage and have access to health care. Thank you.
So now we have time for questions from the board.
I'd like to hear a little bit about if somebody could tell me about access to health care. You know, certainly this is a really fundamental part of compensation for public sector workers. If you don't have health care, that's what we consider a parasitic employer, because you're shifting the cost of families' health care onto taxpayers, who it sounds like they're already supporting this project. Is it in fact the case that the workers at the Hilton don't have access to health care?
We have access to healthcare, but it's way out of our price range. It's very, very expensive.
So that's not real access. It's really, people can't afford to participate in the program?
Now, in our first contract, they made an allowance for single coverage for the employee, just for the employee, not their family, single coverage of a $40 copay a month. You know, and that was their concession to us. And so we took that with the first contract, and myself being a diabetic, I needed health care, and so I grabbed that. In the long run, it cost more money than the insurance I have now. I mean, because it took my, different meds that I take, like insulin and things of that nature, I was spending about $50 a month on those. Well, they jumped to $150 a month through that, you know, and with my new plan, I'm paying about $75 a month for my meds. Of course, I'm spending about $130 a month for my coverage for just myself. Now, I have kids, and my wife, she works for Wells Fargo, and thank God they have decent health care. She pays about $250 a month when she covers the kids. You know, so we're still paying, what is that, $380 a month just in coverage. That's not including what it costs for meds. You know, so healthcare it's a big issue at our hotel, because many of our workers don't even have it because they can't afford it. They have to make a choice between healthcare or being ill.
Then a lot of it is, you lose your health care if you don't have a certain amount of hours. You have to work 32 hours. A lot of us don't get that because they make sure we don't, or you have to pull your PTO, which is your vacation time, to cover those hours so you can at least qualify for health care. So a lot of people work there and they never get a vacation because they're using their PTO for their health care.
Really quickly to add, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear some of what you said.
Microphone.
I apologize, I didn't get to hear all of what you said because I was back there. But at the end of the day, only 6 out of 120 workers have access to the health care. I mean, they not access, but they actually have health care. It costs about $366 a month out of pocket to get them. So 6 out of 120.
That's actually for family medical.
Specific.
That's fair.
That wouldn't be the sort of percentage that the city of Vancouver workers have, certainly. So it's a completely different standard here.
That's why they tell us that they're just the same as city workers, the police and the fire. You just want to reach across to go, how can you even talk like that to us?
Thank you all. Any other questions from the board? Yes, ma'am.
And if folks who are answering could actually come and use the mic, that would be great. And
Thank you. So my question, I think that the employees of the city are represented through AFSCME, and I'm wondering if the department directors are non-represented, and then if the city treats the department directors the same. So in my city of SeaTac, we are represented by AFSCME, but the department directors just mimic if there's a COLA that's been negotiated, if there's health care benefits that have been negotiated, then the department directors also fall within that same spectrum. So if there was a wage freeze at one point in time and all city employees were included, to me it sounds like that it's a natural lineage to be treated the same, such as with the department directors.
Does anyone want to respond?
I can just, I think I can talk loud enough, right?
no, use the mic.
Thanks, Margaret.
Hello? Okay. So we do know, while I don't have the specifics on the AFSCME represented, non-represented department heads, we do know that the city did budget and give themselves 3% wage increases at upper management level, and that did include Hilton management recently as well.
In the middle of negotiations, we did that.
Sorry about that.
Right now.
Okay. So I just wanted to hear some more from Mr. White or anyone else who can remember what sort of conversation there was about the effect of this hotel when it opened in 2003. What did city officials say about the economic impact, how it was going to help create good jobs, that kind of stuff?
Well, initially, if I remember back that far, and I barely remember this morning sometimes, but they were, the idea was that they were missing out on anywhere from $700,000 to $1 million plus a year in revenues into the city because of the competition of other convention centers in the area. So that was one of the initial things that happened. So the DRA was actually a secondary thing set up to cover that. The county has a facility that actually started this whole thing and got the thing running. Then they created the DRA as an adjunct to keep arm's length from the city council and to run this operation. And the idea was, of course, to supposedly bring more business to the city core, part of the downtown redevelopment of the core, which included Esther Short Park. They're trying to include the Riverfront project and other projects in that, and the new buildings around Esther Short Park for living facilities and commercial space. So the idea was, of course, to bring jobs and to bring more money into the general economy. They originally had contracted with Marriott and then went with I can't remember what happened there exactly, but it was just for an economic improvement zone for the downtown area, particularly, and the county. Of course, as you can see, not all that was met. That's all that I remember.
Well, let's hear now from some more workers about the management's anti-union campaign. Tia?
Hello? Hello? Okay. Hi, my name is Tia Sells. I am a room attendant at the Vancouver Hilton, and I have worked there for approximately 8 months. It works pretty hard. Every day we are expected to clean 15 rooms in 8 hours. That take away 2 15-minute breaks. That takes it down to 7.5 hours, plus morning meeting runs anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes. And then you add time to stop your cart for another 15, 20 minutes. You're not looking at very long to clean those rooms. And one of the messiest events, it's not our only messy event, but one of the worst ones is KumorCon. We remember that one. They came in, we were taking out bags of trash from rooms. I would take out a 33-gallon trash bag full of trash out of 2 rooms. That's how much trash they left. Our tubs were stained every color of the rainbow. Our towels were stained. We had to scrub all that off. Anyways, yesterday we had our team member rally. While we were there, our general manager, Eric Walters, stressed how awesome we are. In the past year, we've booked more rooms and brought in enough more revenue than we earned in 2008, correct? Okay. In addition, we scored in the top 10 in our company in multiple fields of service, to include cleanliness of rooms, helpfulness of our staff members, how fast we are, how good our food is. We earned, I don't know how many, he just kept naming them off. We also scored number 2 during our quality assurance inspection this past year. This is the day after KumorCon. We got our Hilton back up, and we're number 2 in our company. Another thing we accomplished in the last year is that we had no OSHA reportable accidents. Knowing that we've accomplished all this, the team at the Hilton knows that we are important to the success of this hotel. Management is always stressing how important we are, how much they appreciate us, how much they value us. But honestly, actions speak louder than words. And their actions right now are telling us that we're not important, that they do not value us, that we are not appreciated. For example, the Hilton has money to upgrade and remodel the fitness center, replace all of the televisions in the hotel, and paint the service hallway floors. Yet, the Hilton does not have the money to bring us to the same standard of living as when the last contract signed in 2008. According to the American Institute for Economic Research, the cost of living has increased 5.26% since that contract was signed. That means to put the room attendants back on the same standard of living, it's going to take 47 cents. Not the 27 cents an hour that the Hilton insists is good enough for its workers. And that is just to reinstate our previous standard of living. That's not increasing it. Being in the hospitality industry, we understand that work comes and goes. It is either feast or famine in our work. However, how can one consider $1,400 a month a feast? On that amount, how can one expect to put away enough money for the famine times when there is no work? I spoke to a coworker the other day who had to choose between purchasing needed medicines or her food. In December, as a morale booster, the Hilton organized a friendly competition between departments to see who could bring in the most food for a food drive. Honestly, how friendly can a food drive be when my room attendant partners were seeking food baskets for themselves to feed their families? In addition to not acknowledging our need for a decent raise, the Hilton has attempted to intimidate the workers, so we will just accept whatever they toss our way. After the second attempt at negotiations where Hilton refused to budge from their initial proposal of 27 cents, we decided to take a vote to enact a boycott. Leading up to the boycott, the Hilton posted several posters, some of which were posted all over the staff areas, and others that were handed out individually. They even printed them in Russian to ensure that our Russian-born workers would be able to read what the Hilton had to say. In the posters, we were told that if a boycott was enacted, that it would not help us move towards a contract. In fact, they said if we voted for the boycott, we would lose hours, we would lose jobs, and we could possibly cause the Hilton to go bankrupt. In the week leading up to the vote, Eric, the general manager, and Stephen Nelson, the assistant manager, came into the housekeeping department several times to tell us that while they were not telling us how to vote, they would vote no, because by voting yes, we would only be hurting ourselves, and that it would not get us a contract. They would ask us if we had any questions. I honestly felt intimidated. I felt that if I spoke up, I would be retaliated against. Knowing how intimidated I felt, I can only imagine how intimidated those from other countries felt. Many of my coworkers are from countries where it is unwise to speak up against those in authority. The day before the vote, Dorothy, our housekeeping manager, told the housekeeping staff that she had been fired because of the boycott at the Portland Hilton. I know she went to several other departments and also spoke about this. Originally, I was not scheduled to work the day of the boycott. The day before the boycott, I was called in and asked to work the next day. When I arrived, I found out that all of the housekeeping staff that had not been on the schedule to work that day had been called in. As we were being assigned our work, several of us were assigned various tasks, such as dusting out the minibars, which are not used, are inaccessible to the guests, and not on any cleaning schedule. When it came time to vote, when voting opened, Irene from Human Resources Director escorted a majority of the room attendants to where the voting was taking place. Between the lies and the intimidation of its workers, the Hilton should be ashamed of how they have acted towards their employees. How can they upgrade the hotel but not consider upgrading their most important factor, the employees who make the work happen? How can they tell us that we are making more money than before the last contract, but they cannot afford to give us wages to maintain our lifestyles? And in the long run, is it not cheaper to maintain your workforce than replacing a third or more of it every year? Since I've been working there, I came in, I was number 19. Since then, I am number 13, and in 2 weeks, I will be number 12. And that's not including the people that were hired after me and have left already. Thank you for hearing our stories here tonight, and I hope you guys can help.
Thank you, Tia. Now we'll hear from Luke.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here tonight. My name is Lucas Fielder. I've been a PBX operator at Hilton, Vancouver, Washington for nearly 5 years. And I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about conditions at Hilton, Vancouver, our struggle to improve conditions at our workplace, and the response we've gotten from management in the hotel regards to that. For many years, I was proud to tell people I worked at Hilton, Vancouver. As Tia already mentioned, our hotel has won many awards and commendations. We've consistently placed as one of Hilton's highest rated hotels in this hemisphere, frequently beating out resort hotels and tropical locations. This is a big deal for a hotel in a relatively small town in the Pacific Northwest, and a business hotel at that. Our struggle to attain good wages and benefits has been a trying and difficult one. Hilton makes us fight for the smallest things. As an example, the people who work at a coffee shop wanted to put out a tip jar. Hotel management made the union fight for almost 2 years to allow that to be put out. It was a monumental struggle over a tip jar. Something that didn't cost the hotel a cent, and something I've seen at every other Hilton coffee shop I've ever looked at. Something so ubiquitous, it's impossible to fathom a guest complaining about it or being offended by its presence. That's just a taste of what we face. Insurance for families costs hundreds of dollars a month, sometimes costing more than half of a person's monthly wage. Wages themselves are so stagnant that at the end of the year, they sunk below minimum wage. Our contract ended in the summer, and negotiations have basically been a non-starter. Hotel management finally refuses to offer any improvements in insurance and will not offer an increase in wages that would guarantee to keep us above minimum wage in the upcoming years. In addition to that, all non-union workers, along with hotel management, have already received a raise. This is especially telling as the management raise as a percentage of the existing wage is more costly than a similar wage for a unionized worker. Now that I've told you about the general issues we faced by the average worker at Hilton, Vancouver, let me tell you a little bit about my personal experience at the hotel in general and our more recent battle about wages. I was very happy when I started working at Hilton, Vancouver. I've been looking for a job I could turn into a career, and this looked to be just the place. A fun, dynamic environment that would provide me with many opportunities to advance and expand my professional experience. Though my job was not the most prestigious, I threw myself into it, believing in good faith that my efforts would be recognized and my hard work rewarded. Some of the work I've done for the hotel includes consolidating information at the front desk, writing an 80-page training manual for my position to aid new operators, and people filling in at the position. Nearly 5 years after starting work at the hotel, I'm now making minimum wage. As the years of low wages wore on, I found myself in the unenviable position of having to look for a second job. Still dedicated to the idea of advancing myself within the company, I specifically sought out a job at another Hilton hotel. The hotel's response to this was not as enthusiastic as I'd hoped. Indeed, they looked on this development with a bit of disdain. All through this time, I have been getting involved with our local union, eventually becoming a shop steward, becoming increasingly involved with community actions, petition signings, and various union votes. Things have always been a bit tense between union workers and management. Management generally tries to put the blame for any disliked policy on the head of the union. Things have really vamped up over the past few months, especially for me. Time and again, management has resisted anything that would improve the lot of the people who work here, whether it's wage increases, improvement of our insurance options, or anything else. The mantra they've repeated over and over again through negotiations is, there is no money, there will be no money. They have not budged an inch since we began our financial negotiations in November. This obstructive attitude left us no choice but to hold a boycott vote. During the weeks leading up to this vote, management increased their hostilities in ways we'd never seen. They put up posters claiming they made a reasonable and generous offer, threats of turning the hotel into an office building, implying money doesn't grow on trees, chiding us because we have the audacity to demand better wages for our admittedly excellent work. Threats about cutting hours or laying people off were especially effective in intimidation of my fellow team members. I would also note that even though the boycott vote failed, for some departments they've cut hours anyway, and now many of those employees will soon have to go without insurance because their hours are so low. After this, they resorted to even more direct methods. First, after an attempt to talk with me about the boycott vote, an attempt was made to interfere with my second job. I've been working this job for a year, and I had made an arrangement to leave work at Vancouver early a couple of nights a week to make a timely arrival at my second job. I was, out of the blue, told this would no longer be acceptable. This in itself is bad enough, but management claimed I never made such an arrangement, despite the fact that they've been signing off on my timesheets where I'd been leaving early 2 nights a week for a year. Fortunately, I was able to make arrangements with my other employer. The retaliatory actions did not end there, by a long shot. The hotel management found out we filed a complaint when the hotel management found out we filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board, I was suspended. Then, the day after I delivered a speech where we publicly announced this at a rally, I was fired. After a long and stressful struggle, I was reinstated at my job in early January. However, even that was not the end, as there was an attempt to bring me up for disciplinary action regarding internet use. Not only is this something every member of the department does, but a little research actually showed me that this is a cliche of modern union busting. That brings us up to where we are today. Work is a struggle between low wages, chronic overwork, and the very realistic fear that hotel management is going to find yet another reason to pursue disciplinary action against me. It's very difficult to dredge up any enthusiasm for my work, and there's no end in sight. I would like to close, if I could, with some facts regarding facts and opinions regarding. Now, as I said earlier, The primary reason I cited for the lack of improvements in wages and benefits is low hotel attendance. However, as I also mentioned, the hotel is very highly rated by both external ratings and Hilton's own internal scoring. What can be gleaned from these facts is that there's no problem with our customer service, and indeed the mostly unionized customer service jobs are doing excellent work. One might be inclined to simply shrug and say it's the economy. However, just last year, our sales managers proved incapable of selling a wedding in June. That is, our sales team couldn't convince people to come have a wedding in June at the most popular month to have a wedding in one of the best venues to hold a wedding in town. And frankly, if you can't sell a wedding in June, it's not just the economy, you just can't sell. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for coming out here today, everyone. And I hope you found both my words and the words of my fellow workers informative. And thank you again.
Thank you. Well, let's hear some more from Hilton workers. Jillian.
Oh. You push the button. Okay. My name is Jillian, and I'm an on-call banquet server at Vancouver Hilton. I love my job at the Hilton, and it is a good job for me. However, for many of my coworkers, whom I'm very proud to work with, don't have a great job that provides for themselves and their families. Too many of my coworkers are receiving state assistance and local charity assistance to make it through the days they are living and working for the Hilton Vancouver. I am so lucky and proud that my boyfriend has a job that I like to call a real job. It is nothing major. He didn't have to go to school for years, but his work is valued, and he is able to make a living wage for me and our daughter. He was recently injured on the job and has been unable to work. Our household is now short about $300 a month, which is a lot of money, but we are grateful for workman's compensation and that his company has covered our portion of the family medical up until this month. When I realized we pay about $220 for our family medical, covering 2 adults and 1 child. That's a realistic health plan idea. Right now, I'm not too sure where that money will come from, as I am not working very much at this time of year. And family medical is not an option for me as an on-call server through the Hilton. And even if it was, I could probably never make the required hours, no matter how much fill-in work I could find. I watch with great empathy and sadness as my coworkers in my department struggle to keep their medical for their families every quarter, and many of them lose it. I am saddened as I learn the hourly wages of our housekeepers and dishwashers and the housemen, all of whom I see working so hard. The proof of the hard work is in the numbers, and a mere thank you is not enough for these full-time workers, whom many have been forced to take other jobs, and some leave Hilton entirely. A thank you and a candy bar is not going to pay the power bill, put food on the table, or get medical treatments needed to survive. A wage increase of cents is so sad and disrespectful to me. Gas just jumped 27 cents in the last month down the street from my house. Bus fares are going up, and many of my coworkers cannot afford to drive their own car and struggle for their bus passes now. I hope to work for the Hilton Vancouver forever. I hope I can be proud of the care it takes of its workers. But right now, I am just sad when I see and think of how much everyone is struggling, and I know Hilton can do better with our contract. So many of our requests are not unreasonable, and I would expect them to at least come halfway on most of it, but they won't. They need a push. So if there is any way that you can help us on behalf of Vancouver Hilton's workers, I am begging you to do whatever it takes to get their corporate attention so that we can get a contract that we can all be proud of together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Lewis.
Hi, my name's Louis Herbert. Some of you have probably seen me talk before. I'm banquet captain at the Vancouver Hilton. 7 years this June. Now, I was asked to speak late this afternoon. You're supposed to hear from Monty, one of my coworkers. He currently has a flu, so he won't be here. But, he's got quite a few medical issues.
I hear you. Put it right, swallow it.
Wow, so I have to, I'll put the mic right here. Feel like a rap star. Okay, one of the things I really like about working at the Hilton are the local groups who come in, our guests. Familiar faces, they come in all the time and they're very happy and gracious with the work that we do for them. As you've heard, we're in the top 10 of many of the scores for all the Hiltons. I mean, Hiltons are there, there's hundreds of them. And some of those, we're number 2 on one of those. I mean, it's a big thing in the service industry to hit those numbers, especially for a small hotel like ours, being in a small town. And so when we hit that, everybody in the Hilton, all of our workers, every last one of them is very proud of that. So as you heard earlier when we were talking, I have diabetes, so I do have medical conditions. Under our first contract, we were offered a single employee rate of $40 a month for copay, which was pretty good, I thought. And so, you know, I took that, and it was incredibly expensive because, you know, the doctor visits started going up to $25 a visit. My meds, I started spending $150 a month on meds. You know, and when I finally got the chance to switch out of that, I went to the more expensive plan. I think I told you guys I spent $130 a month. My wife just texted me and said I'm crazy. It's over $200. I'm like, okay. But I do know I pay about $75 a month for meds with that other plan I have, and my doctor's visits are $5 to $10, and so it's a decent plan. But I can't afford to have my family on that plan. You know, the single coverage is much cheaper than having the full family coverage, which is like $600 or something like that. So my wife, she has coverage through her work. She works for Wells Fargo, and it's a decent coverage. She spends about $250 a month for the copay, and so that covers my family. So I'm one of the few people at the Hilton who actually are covered with health insurance. I mean, there's what, 6 of us? But it's, and a lot of it is because you can't afford it, but a lot of it is, like I said, that the people, they're not getting their hours, and so they're losing their health insurance. We're using our PTO hours that we have available to maintain the fact that we keep our hours up there to keep our insurance. I don't have any PTO hours available anymore, but I'm one of the lucky few because my seniority puts me at the top of the list. So I'll work before anybody else will, which, yay for me. But, you know, it's not good for the rest of the workers. Yeah, our full-time servers, they're having a really hard time making their hours. Some of them have been able to pick up hours in other departments, like the restaurant this week are very busy because we have bridge players in there, so they're using some of our servers for that, and that's been a blessing. In different times when we have like huge groups, our servers will be able to come in and do other jobs in the hotel. But the one big thing, without affordable health care, especially in today's economy, the families here at the Hilton, I mean, they're making the choices. They're either going to pay for the meds or going to pay for this week's dinner. It's a hard choice, but what are you going to do? So we definitely, desperately need a new contract. We desperately need health care that is affordable for all. I think that's about all I have to say about that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Jeff,
Good evening, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Jeffrey Jens. I'm a dish steward at the Hilton, Vancouver Hilton. I have been there for 5 years. I get dishes from different sources from the hotel, like the restaurant, the kitchen, the cafeteria, in-room service, and banquets. That's quite a lot of dishes. We have to work fast to keep up with all the dishes. On occasion, when a dishwasher is down, we have to do them by hand. It's very hard work. In fact, it's the hardest job I've ever had in my life. This evening, I'm here to share my story because I'm an example of many workers who are struggling financially at the Vancouver Hilton. The last wage increase I had was in 2008. Last summer, my hours were cut every single week because the culinary department was very slow. And then I had to use all my vacation hours. So I'm not able to take a vacation because I have to use all my vacation hours to cover for all the slow weeks. It turned out that I was going to be short on paying my rent for August and September because my paychecks were smaller. I then talked to my union rep about how I was going to pay my rent. She helped me get assistance or resources. It was the first time in my life I've ever needed rental assistance. She was able to help with food boxes, gift cards, and donation to help pay my rent. Then the next month I had to ask my church for help. They could only afford to pay part of what I needed for rent for September. I then had to use my waiver clause and then pay the rest of what I needed for my rent out of my next paycheck. The waiver clause is one time only, so now I have to make sure that I have to come up with my rent from now on. I then had to watch on how I spend my money and also figure out how to save my money. Some of the things that I've been doing are comparing prices of grocery items so I can find the most inexpensive before I buy them. I'm careful with how much money I take out to buy groceries. I no longer buy a monthly bus pass and use my spare change for each bus ride. The only time I feel I can splurge on myself is on special occasions like my birthday. In closing, it's very important that the City of Vancouver and Hilton Corporation provides all Hilton Vancouver workers with a living wage. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Thanks to all the workers for sharing this very compelling and inspiring and depressing testimony. We on the Workers' Rights Board will adjourn for a few minutes to deliberate, but we do have some additional presentations while we will leave the room, and then we'll come back and talk about our recommendations. So Bob?
You guys gonna file out? We have a couple of speakers, folks, so stay where you are. We just have a few, two speakers who are going to announce a few things. One is a struggle going on for justice at the Fred Meyer store, and there's another one about a labor project, history project going on. Oh, okay. Usually they take the mic away from me, but anyway, we have two speakers coming up really briefly. One of them is about a history project going on. Is Brad here? You'll be on second. Brad's here, great. And I'd like to invite Ida Baumer and Donna Wright to come up, please. Ida Baumer is a union rep with United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 555, which is my union. And Donna Wright works at the Fred Meyer here in Orchards in Vancouver. And they have a little story to tell you about what it's like to work at Fred Meyer. Sister.
Hi, glad to be here. Just a little short version. My name is Donna Wright. I am a local member of, I'm a member of the UFCW Local 555. I work for Fred Myers. 1 month shy of 17 years. In all the years that I've worked for Fred Myers, I've never been disciplined. There's been so many details to this story, but since I only have a short time, I'm going to tell you the short version. I am not proud to say this, but I want to be honest and tell you all. About a year ago, I was heading to decertification to get rid of my union. Fred Meyer knew that I wanted to get rid of my union. The management team at the store that I worked at really liked me at the time. Though it took some time, I became very involved in my union. I figured out that my employer was breaking almost all of the rules in our contract. I began to hold them accountable to our contract. I could tell that my managers were not happy with me being involved in my union because they started to treat me very differently. My manager would see my coworkers come to me with questions about our contract. On October 22nd, my coworkers and myself had an action at our store because management was violating our contract and working non-union workers in the check stand. Because my managers were violating our contract, one of my coworkers lost her medical for the month. Our management team was very upset about the action. Through the next few months, the members at the store I worked at continued to work on violations of our union contract. On January 13th, I was instructed by my manager to clock out and go meet with the store director in our break room. I told my manager that I wanted to have my union rep. She instructed me to clock out, call my union rep. She then instructed me again to go wait in the break room. I was approached multiple times in about 10 minutes, in about 10-minute frame by my manager and the store director to clock out and go to the break room. I don't know about you, but when I clock out on my own time and can go wherever I want to go, Fred Myers asked me to break the law by working off the clock. Since I refused to work off the clock, the store director came out onto the floor and terminated my employment in front of my customers and my coworkers. And I thank you for listening. Appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Thank you for coming.
Did you want to say something, Ida?
No, I think Donna's got it all covered. I think she's good.
Yeah, I'm Lorna King with JWJ, and to help support our union, another union sister from Vancouver, Donna Wright, who just spoke, we're passing around a sign-up sheet so that you can get information about how you can support Donna. There's going to be rallies, there's going to be emails coming out, and ways that you can support. So I'm going to pass these around and make sure they go down the road.
So they can be contacted, you can be
So
involved.
you can be contacted, so you can be involved to support Donna. And there's going to be a rally at the Orchard Fred Meyer on March 31st at 3 o'clock.
21st.
Oh, sorry, March 21st at 3 o'clock. And you'll get flyers on the way out, so be sure you grab one so we have an important support to do.
So please sign up to help Donna, we'll start them going this way, just keep them moving if you would. And start them here. And could I please have Brad Johnston come up? Brad. Is it on? Hello? Yes, it's on. Brad Johnston is with the Southwest Labor History Project. He's a student at Washington State University, and he's got a few words to say about what he's involved in. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. Thank you for having me. My name is Brad Johnston, like you said, and I am a senior over at Washington State University, Vancouver. I am also an intern, a research intern over at the Clark County Historical Museum. And I wanted to let you guys know here tonight that we are tentatively trying to put on a exhibit called Tools of the Trade, hopefully next year in 2013, which is essentially we're trying to highlight the history of labor in Southwest Washington, primarily here in Vancouver. And we could use the support from our local unions hopefully with research material. And if you guys could maybe volunteer any time to oral histories or anything in that nature, it'd be greatly appreciated. But yes, we just wanted to let you guys know tonight that we're hoping to, over the Clark County Historical Museum, put history to work finally and do it for the union so that people can look back at the history of Clark County to better inform decisions on labor during times like this with issues that still plague our local community with labor-related issues. So, if you guys need, if you guys are looking for any contact information, you can find us online at cchm.com, and you can contact us at the museum at 993-6232. That's area code 360. And if you guys have any questions of me or the museum, you can contact me personally at brad.johnston@email.wsu.edu. And I'm really excited, and I've already done some of the legwork, and it would be great to get in contact with some of the unions to really put this together. So thank you very much for your time.
Bob asked me to make a few more announcements. My name's Chris. I'm an organizer with Jobs with Justice, and I just wanted to, first of all, thank everyone for coming. Our panel will be back in a minute, but I wanted to make sure that people knew about some very exciting events happening next week, both that Jobs with Justice are supporting. On Wednesday, February 29th, it's going to be a big, busy, full day, starting bright and early at 7:15 a.m. for the Jobs of Justice Faith Labor Breakfast, Creating Communities of Hope and Equity. Like I said, it's at 7:15. That's going to be at St. Philip Neri Parish on 2408 Southeast 16th. There are some little yellow flyers like this if you are interested in that, and there are a lot of people that are helping to organize that fabulous event. Joe Rastetter is here, Jean Eilers is here. So if you have any questions, ask one of them. Later in the day, Occupy Portland is going to be having its next big action. And this one is going to be pretty exciting, I think. Last November, folks came together to shut down the banks. And this next action, next Wednesday, is going to be shut down the corporations. Specifically, corporations that are part of the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. Who's heard of ALEC? A few people have, but a lot more people haven't. This is a bad organization. It's corporations basically buy off legislators, and I know they've even bought off some in Salem. It's not just DC, but there are several Oregon legislators that are members of ALEC. So there are a lot of corporations that are part of this, like McDonald's and Wells Fargo. The list goes on, many of whom have labor struggles going on currently. There are different groupings, affinity groups, that are going to be targeting each of these corporations with different kinds of direct actions and theater pieces. And Jobs with Justice is going to be doing one of these as well. So I would encourage people to get up early, get a good night's sleep, get up early, go to the Faith Labor Breakfast, and then at 11:30 a.m. head over to the Occupy Portland Shut Down the Corporations Day of Action. It starts at 11:30 at the Waterfront Park at Ankeny and NATO in downtown Portland. Rally at 11:30, and then a march going to these different corporate headquarters with different kinds of direct action and theater starting at 1 o'clock. Ours is going to be at 2 o'clock, so Get there at 1 o'clock. We'll be meeting up, Jobs with Justice will be meeting up at about 12:45, just before the march starts, right at the edge of the crowd, right at the river. So please join us next week for Occupy Portland and Jobs with Justice, next big day of action. Bob, how are we doing on the panel? Are they still deliberating?
Still deliberating, but I'd like Chris to talk about what this card is I have in my hand. This is the JWJ. What is it, Chris? I forgot.
I don't know. It's in your hand, Bob. No, this is the job. I have one too.
I filled out one of these a long time ago. It's a Jobs with Justice pledge, but
It's the Jobs with Justice pledge card. Who in this room is a Jobs with Justice pledger? All right, I see 8 people who aren't, so I'm talking to you. This is the Jobs with Justice pledge. It's not a pledge of money. It's not a pledge to join ALEC and fight against workers' rights. It's a pledge to show up to events and actions like this 5 times a year. That's how we do things. We show up. The more of us that show up for each other's struggles, the more we're going to win. Just like all these yellow shirts here, UFCW. I see a lot of yellow UFCW shirts showing up to support HERE, Unite Here. I see a lot of green shirts over there supporting Unite Here. That's what it's about. I can't see what those green shirts say. I think they say "Ask Me." Is what they say. I know there's people from SEIU. There's a lot of other organizations and unions represented, but people show up for each other's struggles, not just for our own, but for each other's struggles. That's the way we're going to win. We all show up when it's time to save the post office. We all show up when it's time to help these workers in Vancouver. We all show up when workers at Fred Meyer's are under attack. We all show up when Occupy Portland says it's time to shut down the corporations. We need to show up for each other's stuff, and that's what this pledge card is all about. So I'll ask Bob, who made me do this, to make sure that these get passed around. Bob left the room, so maybe Carly can do it. Thank you.
well, the board's still deliberating. Does anybody else have something to say that they want to?
Open mic. Take it out of my hands.
Tell them about the healthcare committee, Jobs with Justice.
There you go.
Oh, so on the spot, aren't I? The healthcare committee. We, Jobs with Justice, a couple years ago, decided to get involved in the healthcare fight. And we, after a process of deliberation, decided that we thought the best way to really fix the healthcare system was not by tinkering around the edges, not by making these decent state plans a little bit more accessible, and a few more dollars here and there. We said we need to have a complete universal healthcare system, a single payer healthcare system is what we decided to do. And we didn't plan on it being such a big deal, but it seemed like everybody that was involved in healthcare organizing work agreed and said single payer is the only way to go. So tons of people have gotten involved in our Jobs with Justice Healthcare Committee. We've been doing a lot of work on that. Just this past December, we brought some organizers from Vermont, where they won healthcare for every Vermonter with a campaign called Healthcare as a Human Right. And we had a bill in the legislature previously, and it did pretty well, but it didn't pass. There's a lot more work to do. There's a lot of opposition because there's a lot of money to be made, as we've heard tonight, how much healthcare costs. There's a lot of money there, and if we take the insurance companies and the administrators out of the picture, they lose a lot of money. But if we can take healthcare off the table at the bargaining table, then workers can do a lot better. So, Jobs with Justice is very involved in the healthcare fight. Here comes an important announcement from Library.
We actually have the library for after closing, so no need to worry.
Okay, we're still waiting for the board to deliberate and come back, but I'm gonna, Robin, here from Vancouver has something to say, and then brother Jamie is gonna talk a little bit about what's going on with the book.
There's some Occupy Vancouver folks in the audience, by the way. And I want to thank them as well. They were you know, a lot of those people have really come down and supported us in what we've been doing, and I think it shows exactly how deep-rooted our dissatisfaction is with the way things are going in our lives today. When people from every different stripe, every different religion, every different Republicans, Democrats, whoever it is coming to the forefront and fighting for the basic needs that we need as citizens, I think that's extraordinary. And they were really, Occupy was really helpful in the Hilton and getting our friend reinstated after Luke, after he was fired and abused. And so I really wanted to thank them and appreciate it, and thanks for coming. You want to go, Neil, man?
Let's welcome the board back in, folks.
Excuse me.
Well, thanks again to the Hilton workers for your testimony tonight and for your courage in this struggle. We want to hear from board members, some comments they have to make, and then we'll read our formal recommendations. Anyone want to offer some comments?
First, I'd like to begin by thanking the workers for standing up and speaking out tonight. Courage is contagious, and your courage has been contagious here tonight, so thank you for what you've done by speaking out. As a pastor and as someone speaking from a faith perspective, I believe it's important to provide a moral squint on issues affecting the common good. And as I think tonight about the basic moral principles that are at play and that are facing the issues of the Hilton workers, I think of a basic moral principle that can be found in pretty much all of the world religions and among those who don't call themselves religious. And I think of the Golden Rule. And I think of the Hilton management, and I think of the Downtown Redevelopment Authority in relation to the Golden Rule. And I ask myself, how can one manage and how can one run those operations and know that those who are working full time can't provide for their families? Would you want to be in that situation, is the question that the Golden Rule asks. Would you want to be in a situation where you're serving food at a banquet and yet you have to go to a food bank to provide for your own family? And when I think of the long-standing time in which this golden basic principle has not been lived up to, it makes me realize just how deeply and profoundly there's been a basic denial of humanity and dignity.
That's right.
How is it that one can care more about TVs and sports equipment than humans? The issues that have come forward tonight, I believe, are so deep and so profound that they really show that what is going on at the Hilton is not only toxic for the families of the workers, but is really toxic for our community. After hearing the workers tonight, I believe now more strongly than ever before that we have a moral imperative to put pressure on the city and on the Hilton management to treat the workers of the Hilton with a dignity and respect that they so justly deserve.
I have to say that it's been
amazing to hear these stories and still have a sense of the pain and the struggle. To know that the workers have been betrayed on so many different levels, whether it's the city in which they work, the governance of the city, I mean, the DRA, all of the players in this, kind of the shattered dreams, the broken promises, the cut in the hours and the pay. And yet you perform. You bring the quality of the service, you keep those guests happy, you make money for that hotel. And that is what is so devastating to hear. The injustice of that, and yet you continue. And the resilience that you have. And know that we are here to respond very heavily on this.
I'd just like to thank everybody for sharing your testimony tonight. It was really a very moving experience for those of us on the panel, and really clarifies the need for all of us to hold our public officials accountable for the standards that we maintain in this community. Now, it's always really hard to follow pastors. How are you going to do that? These people have the monopoly on eloquence. And I'll have to just speak to you as an economist, which I am. Sorry. But let me say this. Economic development is fundamentally based on living wages. That's how you accomplish economic development. Economic development is not about profits. It's not about multinational corporations. It's not about bringing people in to play bridge in conventions. That's not economic development. Economic development is based on living wages. And that's the premise the city has to work from. Thank you.
It's always hard to follow an economist. But I was spending a little time on my iPhone trying to find out how many Hilton hotels there are. And I got several different answers depending on which website, but every answer was in the thousands. And it is so remarkable that you have made this hotel like in the top 10 or the top 2 of these thousands of hotels. And I was thinking about, Andre was talking about a betrayal, and to me what's happening in this hotel is a betrayal of the American dream. The American dream is supposed to be, you work hard at your job, you're successful, you do all for your employer, and then you can take care of your family. And so to me, to have this hotel and the DRA and the City Council allowing a situation to go forward where people are doing a great job and can't get care for their families, I think that that is an act of high treason against the American dream, and people should be held accountable for that treason.
I just want to say, on the note of betrayals, all my work for the past 2 decades has been about stories of betrayal, stories of injustice. And someone mentioned that whatever's happening today to the workers is because of a budget decision. And in the film that I made on the Bhopal gas tragedy, that tragedy happened because of a budget decision. And every single day, all over the world, there are tragedies, stories of injustice because of budget decisions. And I can tell you honestly that with the different communities I worked, I was at a point maybe, when I'd given up. I really thought that we keep on fighting, and nothing seems to be happening. And yet I can tell you, in all honesty, that a few months ago when I met Carly and I met the Hilton workers here, and I attended a few of the meetings, something changed in me. Because, you know, as university professors, they're pretty privileged people. And yet you will hear university professors saying that they're going to give up because nothing can be done, because, you know, we have this top-down administrators. And I said today, I find that ridiculous. And I said that to Laurie, and she said, why? And I said, you know, the Hilton workers have taught me that it is important to fight, that we must go on fighting, and if we fight, we can win, and you know, and as long as we stand together. And I thank you, and you are an inspiration. Your stories are sad, but your stories are the history of America and the history of the world too. And I thank you for being this inspiration.
Thank you for all those wonderful comments. I'd like to do a little shout out for the people that came with me today. You have Union Sisters here from SeaTac. Could you guys stand up and family here? Know is that your stories are sad, but you're not alone, and collective impact does a lot of work. You know, as a policymaker, what I realize is that the community voice and the political will with the same vision, things can happen. Right now you have that community voice. What you need to do is get the political will so you can get the vision. So what I suggest is you become a squeaky wheel and you find out exactly when those council meetings are and whenever all those committee meetings are, and you just make sure that you always send somebody. Consider it a roadshow. Mark your calendars and just have the same message and continue to be the same message, because your policymakers will change that budget. That budget can be changed. Amendments can happen. Access to health care, it's a no-brainer. We all know that through economic development. If you don't have healthy communities, you're not going to bring in developers who want to come in and relocate their businesses. So I think that's a voice that can be carried to your city council also. And last but not least, I learned from the mayor of Auburn that if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So let's.
Well, what a night. Thank you all for coming here tonight, showing your support, listening to the testimony. We on the board have tried to draft some quick conclusions and recommendations. And please, board, speak up and help me out here. But let me just call off a couple of these that we want to recommend. We will call on the City of Vancouver and the Downtown Redevelopment Authority to find money to settle a contract which brings workers out of poverty and makes certain that workers have access to affordable health care. And we will hold the mayor and city council responsible for reaching a fair resolution of this struggle. We propose that the Downtown Redevelopment Authority recognize that economic development is based on the purchasing power of its workers. And we call on the DRA to manage the hotel in the best interests of the city. The best interests of the city does not include having workers in poverty and dependent on public services and charitable donations. We also propose to draft a resolution supporting livable wages and benefits and the unimpeded right to collective bargaining for all workers at city-owned properties, and bring that resolution to the Vancouver City Council. And we want to investigate how to pass an ordinance to compel the DRA to align its pay structure and benefits and contracts as it has with other city workers with the Hilton workers. We will issue a report from this hearing detailing the testimony we heard and the conclusions we have reached, and use that to report to educate the community about the situation. We will bring the report to the City of Vancouver and the Downtown Redevelopment Authority, and the Workers' Rights Board and the citizens of Vancouver will make our conclusions public, and will continue to follow the situation and make public in every way possible this struggle until a fair contract is secured.
I just want to say thank you so much to the workers who came here to tell their story. Thank you to everyone who came to hear the story, and thank you to our wonderful panel. So we have work to do, and we're going to do it.